A specialized team of Border Collies veered off their training path in Colorado's rugged canyons when something extraordinary caught their attention. A park warden, beaten, bleeding, and bound to a massive boulder, was barely clinging to life. Their response? Absolutely remarkable. The elite search and rescue Border Collies were running advanced terrain exercises in Redstone Canyon when the unexpected happened. Their handler, Emma Vega, lost sight of them during a sudden rock slide. The dogs, operating on pure instinct, navigated through the treacherous landscape of jagged rocks and steep drops. That's when they found him. Nathan Parker, a 40-year-old veteran park warden, was slumped against a massive boulder, his body secured with climbing rope so tight it cut into his flesh. His uniform was torn and bloodied, his face swollen, bruised, and smeared with dirt, barely recognizable. But instead of barking frantically or running back for help as most trained dogs would, these Border Collies executed a series of actions so methodical, so intelligent, that the story of what happened next spread through law enforcement communities nationwide. Their response to finding a human in distress defied everything we understand about animal behavior. The lead dog, a black and white Border Collie with distinctively notched left ear, approached Parker cautiously. Instead of barking, she sat directly in front of him, making deliberate eye contact. The warden, drifting in and out of consciousness, recognized the dog's trained posture. "Help!" he managed to whisper through cracked lips. That's when the rescue operation began. The lead dog, later identified as Scout, examined the ropes binding Parker. She barked once, sharp and commanding. Immediately, the other 4 dogs spread out in what appeared to be a coordinated search pattern. One began digging beneath the ropes where they anchored to the ground. Another positioned itself at the canyon edge, barking in a specific pattern. 3 sharp barks, pause, repeat, a recognized distress signal. 2 others circled the perimeter, seemingly secure in the area. Scout stayed with Parker, pressing her body against it for warmth. When he lost consciousness again, she licked his face persistently until he stirred. 20 minutes later, human voices echoed through the canyon. Emma Vega appeared with 2 rangers, having followed the dog's tracks and distressed barks. It was like watching a human rescue team. Emma would later testify. They didn't just find him, they initiated emergency protocols. Scout even positioned herself to prevent him from slipping down the slope. Nathan Parker awoke 3 days later in Redstone Medical Center, his body a constellation of pain. The harsh hospital lights made him wince as a nurse adjusted his fore. "The dogs!" he croaked, his throat raw from dehydration. "Where are the dogs that found me?" Dr. Martinez checked his vitals before answering. "Outside. The team hasn't left since they brought you in, especially the one with the notched ear." Later that afternoon, Emma Vega entered his room. She was shorter than Parker expected, with sun-weathered skin and alert hazel eyes that missed nothing. "You were left to die," she said directly, pulling up a chair. "Someone tied you to that boulder in a location that hasn't been patrolled in years. The rope contained rattlesnake venom on the fibers, meant to enter your bloodstream through the abrasions. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." Parker nodded weakly. "The mining company. I filed reports about their operations in protected areas." Before Emma could respond, Scout appeared in the doorway. Without waiting for permission, she padded directly to Parker's bedside and rested her head gently on the mattress. "That's odd," Emma remarked. "Scout doesn't connect with people easily. Not since her military handler died in Afghanistan 2 years ago." 3 days into Parker's recovery, the outpost went dark. The emergency generators failed to engage, plunging everything into shadows. Through the window, Parker could see flashlights moving across the compound. "They know I survived," he whispered, disconnecting his fore with shaking hands. Scout, who hadn't left his side, stood alert, ears forward, body tense. Emma entered quietly, tactical flashlight in hand. "Communications are down. Someone cut the lines and disabled the backup system," she reported, voice steady despite the tension. 3 unidentified vehicles just pulled into the south entrance. A crash echoed from the main building. Glass breaking, then footsteps. Scout moved to block the door, hackles raised. Her posture wasn't aggressive. It was protective. "She doesn't want us separated," Parker realized aloud. Emma nodded, drawing her sidearm. "We need to move. Now." They slipped into the hallway, Scout leading, her body low and alert. Every few steps she would pause, head tilted, listening. When they reached the supply room, voices drifted from around the corner. "Check everywhere. He shouldn't have survived the venom. Finish it this time." Parker's blood ran cold. Emma signaled toward the rear exit, but Scout abruptly changed direction, guiding them into the communications room instead. Seconds later, footsteps passed where they would have been. Through the darkened window, Parker spotted two men breaking into the garage. One was hot-wiring an ATV, while another stood guard with what looked like a hunting rifle. "They're planning to escape through the West Ridge," Emma whispered. "If they get into those canyons, we'll never find them." Scout suddenly tensed, staring at Parker with unwavering focus. Then she slipped through the partially open window, landing silently outside. "Wait!" Parker hissed, but Scout was already moving with purpose toward the garage, using the shadows as cover. "She's going after them," Emma realized. "She's buying us time." Parker couldn't watch Scout face armed men alone. Despite Emma's protests, he followed through the window, ignoring the pain shooting through his bandaged body. She cursed under her breath, but followed, weapon drawn. Scout had already reached the garage unseen. The first man had started the ATV's engine when Scout launched herself in the shadows, a blur of black and white. She clamped her jaws on his arm, forcing him to release the throttle. The vehicle lurched forward and stalled. "Get this dog off me," the man screamed, trying to shake her loose. The second man raised his rifle, but Parker tackled him from behind. They crashed into a stack of equipment crates. The rifle clattered away as they struggled in the dirt. Despite his injuries, Parker fought with desperate strength. Emma engaged the third attacker, who appeared from around the corner. A swift kick to his knee brought him down, and she secured him with restraints from her belt. Parker finally subdued his opponent, rolling away breathless. The night air filled with the sound of approaching rangers responding to the commotion. But victory was short-lived. A fourth man, previously unseen, emerged in the shadows behind the vehicles. He aimed a handgun directly at Parker. "You should have frozen to death on that rock," he snarled. The gunshot cracked through the air, but it wasn't Parker who fell. Scout had leapt between them, taking the bullet meant for the Warden. She collapsed with a whimper, blood darkening her side. Parker roared with rage, charging the shooter with reckless abandon. Emma's warning shout faded behind the blood pounding in his ears. The gunman fired again but missed in his panic. Parker slammed into him, driving him backward into the wall. The gun skittered across the concrete as Parker's fists connected again and again. When the Rangers pulled him off, the man was unconscious. Parker immediately crawled to Scout, cradling her head in his trembling hands. "Stay with me," he whispered, tears cutting through the dirt on his face. "You saved me twice now. Don't you dare leave." Scout's eyes remained focused on Parker, her breathing labored but steady. The veterinarian team arrived minutes later, working quickly to stabilize her wound. In the aftermath of the attack, the outpost buzzed with federal investigators. The 4 captured men refused to talk, maintaining stone-faced silence during interrogation. Parker, bandages refreshed and Scout's blood still staining his clothes, poured over personnel files in Emma's office. "I don't understand," he muttered. "These men knew our security protocols, patrol schedules, even the backup communication systems." Emma hesitated before sliding a folder across the desk. "That's why I pulled these records. 3 weeks ago, a maintenance team was granted access to secure areas of the canyon. The authorization signature is yours." Parker stared at the document in disbelief. "I never signed this." "I know," Emma replied quietly. "Which means someone with access to your credentials did." That night, unable to sleep, Parker stepped outside for air. Scout, bandaged but recovering, limped alongside him. The stars were brilliant above the canyon, indifferent to the human drama below. Movement caught his eye, a figure standing near the perimeter fence. Superintendent Richard Collins, Parker's supervisor for 8 years. "Couldn't sleep either?" Collins called, his voice unnaturally casual. Parker approached slowly, Scout growing increasingly tense beside him. "Something's been bothering me, sir. How did those men know exactly where to cut the communication lines?" Collins sighed deeply. "You always were too thorough, Nathan. Always asking questions, filing reports that nobody wanted to see." The realization hit Parker like a physical blow. "It was you." Collins nodded, not bothering to deny it. "The mining company offered millions for access permits. All I had to do was lose some paperwork, redirect some patrols. Simple. Nobody was supposed to get hurt." "You left me to die," Parker said, voice hollow. "I underestimated you," Collins admitted, eyes flicking Scout. "And I certainly didn't count on her." The following week, with Collins in custody and the initial investigation underway, federal agents identified an abandoned maintenance cabin that might contain evidence. Parker insisted on joining the search team. Scout, still recovering but clear for light duty, remained at his side. The cabin perched on the edge of a steep canyon wall, accessible only by a narrow hiking trail. As they approached, Scout's demeanor changed, ears back, body rigid. "Something's wrong," Parker whispered to Emma, who had insisted on leading the operation herself. The cabin appeared empty at first glance. Dusty floors, cobweb corners, abandoned equipment. But Scout moved directly to a metal cabinet in the back room, pawing insistently at its base. Parker knelt beside her, running his hands along the floor. He felt it. A slight draft. "There's something under here." They moved the cabinet to reveal a trapdoor. Below was a small chamber filled with documents, computer equipment, and maps of the canyon marked with potential mining sites. Parker began photographing everything while Emma called for the evidence team. "This proves everything," Parker said, examining a ledger of payments. Collins was just one part of a larger network involving state officials, and the shot came from nowhere. The bullet splintered the wooden frame inches from Parker's head. Scout barked sharply as they dove for cover. Standing in the doorway was Deputy Superintendent Michael Ross, Collins' right-hand man. His rifle was aimed directly at them. "You should have left it alone," Ross said coldly. "This goes higher than you could imagine." Emma's weapon was holstered at her side, out of immediate reach. Parker calculated the distance between them and Ross. Too far to rush him before he could fire again. "The mining contracts were just beginning," Ross continued. "With the right permits, this land is worth billions." Scout growled low in her throat, muscles coiled. Parker tried to signal her to stay, but she was focused entirely on Ross. "Call off your dog," Ross warned, shifting his aim toward Scout. "She doesn't take orders from me," Parker replied truthfully. When Ross took a step forward, Scout launched herself at him, a blur of focused determination. The rifle discharged, the sound deafening in the small cabin. Scout yelped but didn't stop, colliding with Ross and knocking him backward. Emma seized a moment, drawing her weapon and securing Ross as he struggled under Scout's weight. But when the dust settled, Scout lay motionless beside the subdued man, blood pooling beneath her. "No!" Parker cried, gathering her limp form in his arms. "Stay with me. Please stay with me." For 3 days, Parker refused to leave a veterinary clinic where Scout fought for her life. The bullet had missed her heart by centimeters, but caused significant internal damage. The specialist wasn't optimistic, but Parker knew something the doctors didn't. Scout wasn't just any dog. On the 4th morning, as sunlight streamed through the clinic windows, Scout's eyes fluttered open. She looked directly at Parker and, despite her weakness, thumped her tail once against the blanket. "Welcome back, partner," he whispered, tears blurring his vision. The investigation expanded rapidly in the following weeks. Ross's confession implicated officials in 3 states, revealing a network of corruption tied to illegal mining and artifact smuggling from protected lands. Collins had been Parker's direct betrayer, but he was merely one node in a much larger web. When Parker was offered a transfer to headquarters with a promotion, he declined. Instead, he proposed something unprecedented, a specialized K-9 Ranger unit focusing on environmental crime investigation. Emma would co-lead with her expertise in dog handling, and Scout would be the unit's founding member. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, Parker stood at the edge of Redstone Canyon. The sun painted the rocks in hues of amber and gold, a beauty he'd nearly lost a chance to see again. Scout sat beside him, fully recovered except for a slight limp in her right hind leg. "You ready for this?" he asked, adjusting the special vest that marked her as an official Park Service K-9 officer. Scout looked up at him with clear, intelligent eyes that seemed to understand everything. She hadn't just saved his life. She'd given him purpose again. The radio at his hip crackled with Emma's voice, reporting a potential trespassing case near the south boundary. Parker smiled down at Scout. "Let's go to work." She barked once, decisively, and led the way forward. True heroes don't always stand on two legs. Sometimes they have four paws, a loyal heart, and the courage to stand between danger and those they protect. If Scout's story moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that extraordinary bonds can form in the most unexpected circumstances. Subscribe for more tales of courage that change lives forever.